Hey everybody, Chris Carter, Stephen Thompson, your Pittsburgh Post-Gazette Pitt beat writers here at Acrisure Stadium after homecoming night and a big 73-17 win over Youngstown State. The Panthers advancing to 4-0 on the season. First time they've done that since 2000, but it's the first time ever the program has had a undefeated out-of-conference schedule in the history of the program since it joined a conference in 1991. As usual, we go through our good and our bad and our ugly. Steven, start us out with your good.
Yeah, I want to talk about these linebackers who I wrote about earlier in the week. The outside linebackers, Kyle Lewis and Rasheem Biles, who have put a stranglehold on starting duties out there at a position where I think Pitt's as deep as any other position on the roster. I mean, these guys are fast, they are athletic, they are strong. They can make plays all over the field. They can cover, they can blitz, they can tackle. I mean, they do everything for Pitt. I mean, Kyle Lewis had an interception today. Rasheem Biles was creating havoc in the backfield. These guys are just different kinds of athletes that Pitt has had at linebacker in a long time. They are stars in the making, and they are proving that on the field right now.
Absolutely. I agree with that entirely. You see Kyle Lewis, I think he had 6 tackles on the day, an interception, his second game in a row with an interception, and a forced fumble in the red zone, turned around a score there. Really impressive stuff from him and this entire linebacking crew. My good is coming from Eli Holstein, who yet again turns in a really good game. This one a bit more of a complete performance, as he'd admit, but he still was critical of himself after the game. Pat Narduzzi loving that. But this is now 4 straight games that Eli Holstein has thrown 3 touchdown passes. This time, he also has officially 93 rushing yards, but also 2 rushing touchdowns. Of course, it's really 110 rushing yards, but sacks kind of against quarterbacks in college football. For whatever reason, the stat keepers make that. Bottom line, though, is that Eli Holstein is grasping Kade Bell's offense. I wrote about that in my post-game analysis, but the really impressive thing for me about Holstein is he is understanding when defenses are doing different things, how to counter them more and more. You saw against Cincinnati, they dropped into max coverage. It took him until late third quarter to figure out what they were doing and how to beat that. He talked about the same thing against West Virginia. They did some different things. It took him to realize, okay, wait a minute, they're taking away my rollout. Let me just run up the middle, and I'll be able to take those things there and force them to be honest. This week, he did all 3. He started off throwing underneath because you saw Youngstown State. They were trying to take away the deep ball. He said, "You're not going to beat us with a big play. You're gonna dink and dunk us to death." He did that on several drives. Then he also started to run the ball when they were covering that. And then finally, when they started to let up on the deep coverage, he hits him with an 82-yard bomb down the sideline to Sensei Lee. And I think one thing this is showing, Stephen, is when you look at how Eli Holstein is conducting this offense, it doesn't matter who he's throwing to. He trusts his guys. It's a very good chemistry. And Kade Bell's offense, when he's running it, is lethal.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you hit on a good point, which is that it's kind of every week there's something new with Eli Holstein. There's something new that he's adding to his game. And that's on top of the way that he's spreading the ball around to a bunch of different receivers, the way that he's learning how to process different coverages. And then this week, he adds the design runs. He really shows you what a threat he is with his legs. He is just adding something different every week, and it just makes you so excited for, what's he going to look like after game 12? What's he going to look like after game 13? What's he going to look like next year? When he comes back to Pitt, hopefully, and gets ready for another season here.
Certainly a lot of good things to harp on there. But as always, we do have some bad. Steven, what's your bad from this game?
Yeah, the running back depth is pretty concerning right now. I mean, Desmond Reid did not play in this game. He's expected back for the North Carolina game in a couple weeks after a bye week. But with Rodney Hammond ineligible as well, I mean, you just look at who's left in that running back room, and it's pretty thin, especially when, Derrick Davis goes down with an injury in the second half of this game. So you're really only looking at Daniel Carter and Chenabuko, and maybe Juelz Goff or Montrevious Lloyd, one of those younger guys that we haven't seen yet. But I mean, look, Daniel Carter had a great game today.
Fantastic game. Three touchdowns.
Career game, and showed a lot of things that I don't think any of us knew that he could still kind of do. But I don't know if Daniel Carter is going to be able to carry that workload for multiple games in an ACC schedule, even one game against an ACC team. So I think the running back depth is really concerning. You got to get Desmond Reid healthy. You got to think about ways to preserve him, and you got to make sure that you have enough bodies there moving forward.
Agreed. Desmond Reid was carrying his team on his back, it seemed like, several times in the first 3 games. He did not play, though he did dress in this game. I get the sense they're saying, hey, we beat up on this guy enough. Let's get him some rest. I also think they should take him off special teams because that's another place where things are going on there. But I'll flow to my bad. My bad focuses on the horizontal defense. Now, on a whole, Pitt's defense was really good in this game. They didn't even sack the quarterback, but it didn't matter. They were regularly pressuring, stuffing the run. They held what was a team that was averaging 258 yards on the ground per game to 71 yards on 37 carries. very good. And again, no sacks, so not even the college stat book that helps rushing defenses with counting sacks as rushing yards. Not even that coming into play here. But the problem with this defense, to me, is the horizontal defense, defending the horizontal plays, the crossing patterns regularly. There were some plays that were made that were very good. Tamon Lyman had a great breakup on a third down play where he trailed the guy, or actually a second down, but still, he trailed the guy deep down the field and came behind him, swatted the ball down. Really good job there. Then you look at other plays. Rasheem Biles, his interception came on one of those. But there were too many times where Youngstown State got the ball going with that horizontal play, jet sweep, shovel passes, things like that stretched out Pitt's defense thin and stretched it out wide throughout the formation, and they were able to find holes in it. And eventually, that led to other problems like the wide receiver screen touchdown they gave up, and then they did have a blown coverage. They gave up a touchdown. And look, it was great this week. Like, if you give up 3 explosive plays in a game in college football, especially with this Pitt offense, you're going to win most of those. But Youngstown State, as we all know, is not a team that's going to be at the talent level of the rest that they're going to face the rest of the season. They're going to be facing so much more. I do look at this as a problem that if Pitt does not address it, Stephen, it could become a much bigger issue against some of these ACC opponents.
Absolutely, and I think you look at the total number of passing yards that Youngstown State recorded, and they are not a passing team.
Yeah.
I think they were north of or pretty close to 250 yards. The vast majority of those came after the catch. Pitt had a hard time not only following these crossing routes, this horizontal stuff, but then kind of finishing the plays afterwards, and that's something that they've definitely got to clean up.
All right. Normally when we get to the ugly, there's a lot to talk about that wasn't so good for Pitt in this game. But we're gonna do this a little differently. We're gonna talk about this game. Stephen, what is your ugly here?
Yeah, my ugly is just the game itself. I mean, this got out of hand pretty quickly. I mean, Pitt was up 21-0 before the end of the first quarter. They continued to kind of pour it on, and you could tell that this was a team who was coming with an attitude. They wanted to prove something. I think 70 points is kind of the only thing that would have been acceptable to this team on a day like this. They were not only setting out to get a win, but to win dominantly, and they made it a little ugly in the process, putting up 73 points and winning by 56.
Absolutely fantastic job by their offense. Also, 35-3 was the score with 8 minutes to go in the second quarter. Yeah. Like, that's how bad this was. And by the way, Eli Holstein saying, I still didn't like how I played in the start of the second half. Okay, so good point. This game was ugly. It got out of hand fast, but it was what we said should happen. My ugly is going to actually focus on Pitt's next opponent because it was really ugly for the North Carolina Tar Heels, who lost 70-50 to James Madison at home in Chapel Hill. It was looking like North Carolina was going to be the big bad wolves that the Panthers were going to have to go up against in a couple weeks, and maybe that would be their first loss of the season. But after a game like that, when James Madison, who had just scored 13 points against Gardner-Webb the week before, dropped 70 on the Tar Heels at home, that has to be something that has Kade Bell, Eli Holstein, and this Pitt offense licking their chops saying, oh, buddy, we can go out and we can dictate the pace of this game just like James Madison did. It was a very embarrassing performance for an ACC team, and if you're Pitt, you have to take this bye week seriously, take North Carolina seriously, be prepared, but you have a chance to go out there and strike a serious tone in Chapel Hill in 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing as this week. I mean, yeah, sure, you want to get a win, but it's looking like right now you have a chance to really make a statement if you can really take it to North Carolina, if Eli Holstein and this passing offense can do their thing. So we've got to wait 2 weeks to see it, but I think it's going to be a fun one down there in North Carolina.
It's a bye week, but we'll still be having lots of coverage for you for our coverage here at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette of this Pitt football team and what's been a historic 4-0 start for these Panthers as they're getting ready for ACC play. From Stephen Thompson and Chris Carter, thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned. We'll have our Pitt mailbag show up this Tuesday. There is no Pat Narduzzi press conference on Monday, so don't look for that, but we will have other things that we work on throughout the week that kind of assess how Pitt has started the season and rolls things into it. We'll have that mailbag out on Tuesday, still getting you ready for everything else. And as a reminder, all of our Pittsburgh Post-Gazette sports content can be found on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube, including post-game analysis of the game that's going to be right here tomorrow afternoon when the Steelers take on the Chargers from our Pittsburgh Post-Gazette Steelers beat writers. From Chris Carter and Stephen Thompson, thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you again real soon.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.